Take a walk with destiny. Walk on the trail of your life. Live your soul's purpose. Hosted by Jessica Joins, each show is dedicated to revealing your true calling and living a life of fulfillment. Each guest brings inspirational stories that help clear the way for your higher calling. You can listen to her show once a month on the uimediaapp.com, WDJY 99.1 FM, WTTA 101.2 FM, Talk10FM.com, Facebook Live on United Intentions, Spreaker, and many other platforms. Want to join the conversation? Call in now at 678-495-4345. So let's unwind, rest your mind, and let your spirit free to find your soul purpose.
Hey everyone, welcome to Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. I am your host, and this is the show dedicated to helping you uncover and start living your soul purpose. I want to say a special hello to our friends at WDJY 99.1 FM, and hello to our friends at WTTA 101.2 FM in Kentucky and Ohio. How is everyone doing? I'm really excited for tonight because we are switching up the show format. And tonight is the first night that we're doing it. You know, like so many of you, this time of being quarantined, of just being asked to be, having an incredible amount of a moment for reflection and all these different insights coming up and lots of realizations coming up has really given me the opportunity to think about what's really needed right now. And I'm seeing that with so many of my different coaching clients, so much of the different things that I'm engaged with. What I'm really seeing, and you know, it kind of makes the show pretty special, is that a lot of folks are reevaluating their purpose right now. A lot of people are really being called in to evolve their purpose or step into their purpose. There's so much change, and there's such an era of new beginnings upon us right now that I wanted to do something different. And that starts with, we're going to be kicking off talking about all the different lessons in my book starting this month, and we're going to continue it through the rest of the year. Now, when I wrote this book, it was really important for me that it be relatable. So I tell my story in the book, but that it also be practical. And there are 12 lessons in my book, Dare to Believe, that guide you to uncovering and stepping into living your soul purpose. And it's really within each book that's really coursework that you can do. So I always say, like, you don't need me, you know, via my coaching or my online classes, because I literally put it all in right here. And we're going to be breaking down each of those lessons starting tonight. And we're also doing something else that's pretty incredible and I'm pretty excited about. So I know that you've all been seeing our different announcements and the commercials we've been running about coming on for live coaching. Well, we have someone coming on tonight at the end of the show. I actually know her. She's taken one of my courses, but she has some questions that I'm going to answer for you all live on air. So she's going to be on at the end. And I hope that this is a segment that we continue moving forward. And then we still are continuing to have on amazing guests. In a little while here, I'll be bringing on Eliane Dinos, the founder of Kindred Lane, creator of Wisdom of the Forest. And she's going to tell you all about what that is in a second. And she has an incredible journey to purpose. And I know that you're going to learn something valuable from her. So no time like the present, right? So let's begin with kicking off the very first lesson. And I'm going to break it down for you in my book, Dare to Believe. And the very first lesson, I want to tell you a little story here. When I wrote the book, I went and added it back in and made it the first lesson because I had a big aha moment. And the first lesson is to believe that you have a unique soul purpose. And originally I had the first lesson is, you know, how you uncover or step into or understand your soul purpose. And what I really realized, and this was so much of my truth as well, is that it took me a long time to believe I even had a purpose. Now, why is that? It's because we, here on planet Earth, most of us live in what I call separation programming. Most of us, don't believe we're one with God. We believe we're separate. And then a lot of times we believe we're separate from one another. And it plays out like this. We'll believe other people, other special people, or other lucky people, or other like divinely appointed people have a purpose, but that somehow we don't. Right? That we'll believe that, we're just here to kind of work and survive. We don't value ourselves enough or understand that we're more than the human, that we are a soul, and that any soul that comes that is here on this planet has a purpose. There's no soul, you're not here if you don't have a purpose. But because of our belief in separation, we count ourselves out. We think it's for other people. We're like, yep, I get that like a famous athlete has a purpose. They knew it early on. I get Oprah has a purpose, but what's my purpose, right? And it's this belief that you are separate from, that you are not special, that it's not for you, that can sometimes really block you from allowing the uncovering and the awareness of what your purpose actually is in. So that's why it's the first lesson. You cannot uncover and step into living your purpose if you don't even believe you have one, right? And again, as I've always said on this show, when I'm talking about purpose, for our context or soul purpose, it is that moment to moment resonance with what makes your heart sing. Your purpose is inherently tied to what gives you deep fulfillment. It's from the heart. Right? And so believing that that's possible for you is an important first step. So how do you conquer it? So I'm going to do a little tutorial. We're going to get into it right now, following kind of the lesson in the book. And the first thing that I ask you to do, and whether you're driving and listening right now or you're watching, is to just be honest with yourself about where you are in your belief that you have a soul purpose. Okay. And in the book, I use, a scale of 1 to 6, and you can use whatever works for you, but you really want to get a reading on it. And if you're a 1, that would believe like, I don't even believe in soul purpose, like that's where you're at versus, if you're on the high end, I definitely believe I have a soul purpose. And you might be in the middle, like a 3. If you're like, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, I'm not sure. So just first be honest with yourself about where you are. Okay. That's the first step. Honest. When you have awareness and you're honest with it, that's when you open yourself up to change. But you first have to have clarity on that point. And then next, what you want to understand and like dive in and deepen and understand within you is, what are your blocks? What are the beliefs that you have that are informing your lack of belief in having a soul purpose? Okay. So I already gave you some examples. You might believe that soul purpose is just for really special people. You also might believe that you have to know it as a kid. You might believe that it's only like for those with divine soul missions and, it's like they're divinely anointed or appointed. You might believe in scarcity. You might believe that there's just not enough room to go around. Like everyone can't have a soul purpose. Like who's going to do the work? Right? You also might have a belief that soul purpose is like something grand or on a big scale. And again, I'll tell you, it's tied to what you love. It's tied to what gives, you have passion for, your bliss. Ultimately, the way that you love being the key word to serve. Okay, so you get those beliefs on the table, and then I just ask you to sit with them for a little bit. And if you sit with them for a little bit and you meditate on them a little bit, inherently, you're going to start to see like, hey, are these really true or not? Right? And that's what I ask you to explore. Where's the inherent illusion in these? Are these really true? And then finally, what I say is, write a paragraph or 2. Allow yourself to do some free writing where you just pretend and have this game. What if these weren't true? What would be true? Really writing the antithesis to the beliefs. And then you're going to read that aloud, that kind of little mini manifesto about why you do have a soul purpose. These things aren't really true. And you can just spend time reading aloud that every day. The other thing to do is just to have an intention for these beliefs to be lifted, an intention for you to come to know and to believe that you have a soul purpose. So for some folks, this is like lifted out right away. For others, you have to sit and work on it. You really have to do some exercises that we tackle later on around tackling some of these limiting beliefs, some of these really stuck things within you that are just blocking you. but really coming to just have awareness first and foremost of where your blocks are. That's the hardest part. And from there, it really starts to unfold and flourish. Okay. So if you have questions about this, you can call in the show and we'll take those questions a little bit later on as well. But that's it. That's lesson one. Believe you have a soul purpose. And I'll just say this, I promise you, you do. There is no soul here in human form on this planet that is here without a purpose. None. So you're not exempt. I promise you that. Okay, so we're going to get ready to bring on our guest, but first I want to tell you a little bit about her. So Eliane Dinos, she is an incredibly special person that came into my life. I don't even know how many years ago it was now. It seems like forever ago, but it was definitely a divine meeting. She has an incredible story. I'm going to give you a couple of her little bio points too. She's the founder of Kindred Lane. She is a mother of 3 young boys who are her daily inspiration from living for her roots, which she's going to explain to us in a little bit what that's about. And before that, Eliane, like me, spent a long time corporate side. Now, I was in marketing. Eliane was at Korn Ferry, which is a major, huge recruiting organizational advisory firm. She was a principal there. She was a complete rock star there. She actually founded the firm's purpose community there, which grew to over 200 employees. And she collaborated with many, high-level executives of bringing conscious business practices into the world. She had an incredible research study she pioneered there called People on a Mission. And it is truly to this day recognized as a groundbreaking study in how authentic purpose inside a company enables long-term business success. But things have been evolving for Eliane, and it's really through her journey of surrendering to motherhood that Elaine's path has unfolded. And it's a path for her that she's talking about is sparking healthy growth, both in her life and in the work she shares through Kindred Lane. So without further ado, I welcome to the show, Eliane.
Hi, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Of course, this was destined to happen. I actually can't believe you hadn't been on yet. Where's the time gone? I have no idea.
It's really good to see your face and just to be with you in spirit.
Yes.
Yes.
We're all together in spirit right now.
Absolutely.
So Eliane, I would love if you would do a little 1-2 for our audience and just explain where you were 4 years ago and, give them a little bit of the quick and dirty version or as much as you'd like of what it looks like now and how that's evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. So just as you were talking, I was thinking, wow, how different things are now. And picturing my life when I was balancing having 1 kid and then 2 and trying to get dressed in my corporate attire and get the kids to daycare and then, get to work. And I was exhausted by the time I would even get to my car after dropping off the kids. And then the day hadn't even started and just doing the pivot from preschool to meetings in the boardroom or with executives or whatever it may be. And so I saw a lot of people do that seamlessly and gracefully. And I just was not one of those people. I think about where I was 4 years ago, and I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old and did not yet know I was, actually I did. I knew I was pregnant with my 3rd son, but I increasingly had a hard time balancing the demands of the corporate world with my increasing demands of motherhood. And, I knew I always wanted to be a mom. That was something that I always wanted to be, but I didn't realize how that would shift so much that I had been building in my life. So building my corporate career, building my, achievement and just a really gratifying career. But so much of that was altered with the demands of motherhood. And it was really about 4.5 years ago when I started that surrender to motherhood and what it was revealing to me, and really started thinking about purpose in a different way. I had started the purpose community. We were building solutions. I was learning a lot from social entrepreneurs. And that's really what set me to 2 years ago start Kindred Lane and begin life as a social entrepreneur because I became so obsessed with the social entrepreneurs.
Wow.
I thought I was
I'm gonna pause you there. And I want you, when we come back in a second, to just talk all a bit more about that surrender to motherhood and what it's been like so far to be a social entrepreneur. So this is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. I'm Jessica Joins, author, spiritual coach, and inspirational speaker. Understanding your soul purpose is the most important work you will ever do. It's the key to unlocking your true potential and happiness. And that's why I'm so happy to announce that you now have the opportunity to have your most important soul purpose questions answered by me live on air. That's right. I'll tackle your most important questions about how to step into living your life's true calling on my show, Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. So if there are big questions or challenges you've been wanting answers to help with your soul purpose journey, here's your chance. Write to me at contact@uimedianetwork.org and you might get a chance to be featured on my show. Welcome back. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. And really quick, I want to remind everyone that you can now watch and listen to all exclusive and uncensored content. Uncensored's key there, guys. 24/7 on the uimediaapp.com. And also, both me and Eliane are here to take your questions. So if you have any questions about the lesson we just talked about or anything with Eliane, call us right now at 678-495-4345. And so we're back with Eliane Dinos. Eliane, you were just telling us about the surrender and being a social entrepreneur. So continue on, my dear.
Sure. Yes. So I was saying how I was doing the purpose thing in the corporate world, learning a lot from social entrepreneurs, left 2 years ago to start my social entrepreneurship and really practice what I was preaching in a whole new way, building my company from the ground up with my own purpose at the center. And yes, I was doing that also to raise 3 children and have more flexibility around the kids. Starting your own business is not a great way to have a lot of space and flexibility with your kids. I've learned that since, but honestly, the surrender to being a social entrepreneur has been in tandem with the surrender to motherhood. And it really has been an inner journey of constantly surrendering to whatever motherhood wants to teach me or whatever I'm learning from those who I wasn't really paying attention to or those who weren't on my radar when I was in the corporate world. And so it's really been a journey of learning and listening and more of a student than a teacher. And so I've been balancing this, learning and absorbing and growing and evolving my business with teaching and sharing that. And so I feel like I'm really standing firmly on both feet of this student and teacher. Now in quarantine, it's been a little different. I've been a homeschool teacher. I was not prepared to be doing that. So my teaching and the work I share at Kindred Lane has, honestly, I've had to really surrender in a whole new way to motherhood, and am looking at that as just a time of being a student in a whole new way and teaching in a whole new way that I wasn't expecting.
And can you give some examples of that? Because when I hear the word surrender, I go, at least in my own experience, I'll say, I stopped trying to run the show and I let the universe lead. Is that what you're talking about or something different?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a slow surrender for me. I'd say, again, when I think about 4.5 years ago, when I had this aha moment of what it meant to live from my roots and soak up the sun, which is now the language I use to describe it. I didn't have that language then, but it was a slow surrender that started in January 2016 and has slowly been a surrender. And it's really, Jessica, recently that I've gotten to the point where I think I've said, okay, I'm not in control. I was still trying to hold on and have a little bit of control. Like I would take the cues from the universe, spirit, God, fill in the blank with whatever you believe. But it was would take the cues and then I would still try to be driving it, and surrendering has been about letting go of that control and leaning into the discomfort.
Because you had like an idea of what this business was going to be. And in many ways, right? Like you were going to take, in a way, still kind of serving the business world. Right. And, but it sounds like the universe had other plans. Can you, or might be having other plans in the moment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'll give you some of the highlights because it's been an unfolding journey.
Yeah. Whatever you want to share.
When I left the corporate world, I knew I wanted to be a social entrepreneur, put my purpose into practice, and put all of my energy into sharing that with clients. That was what I knew, and to have that flexibility around the kids. And what I realized as soon as I created that space was that I had a knee-jerk reaction to fill it. And that was just something I had been conditioned to be busy, to achieve, to see my successes, to measure success in a certain way. And so I had to surrender to that and really think about, wait a second, how am I defining success in a way that aligns with my health and happiness? That was one question that was sitting out there. And so I took some months to do what I later called tilling the soil, to till the soil. And I was an executive recruiter. When I saw people take breaks on their resume and not go from one thing to the next, I would judge that. And so immediately I thought, oh my goodness, well, how can you grow anything in a garden if you don't till the soil and have a break between the harvest and the next season? I mean, it's, we have seasons for a reason, right? So that was a quick lesson that I learned. And then from there, I got in touch with that emerging soul purpose. And I call it emerging because I was starting to pick up words here and there that I later knit together to become Kindred Lane's purpose of sparking healthy growth in people, organizations, and communities. But I felt like I was a little bit on this scavenger hunt and picking up these words, uncovering a deeper level of meaning, and just surrendering and listening to that nudge of what was next. And it came through loud and clear for a while. It was obvious what the nudges were. The universe, spirit, God, fill in the blank, was saying, yes, this feels right. This is the next move. And I could really feel it. And honestly, as I've gotten to a deeper place of surrender, and it's really been, Eliane, your mission is not to work with CEOs right now. Your mission is to work with moms, because motherhood is working on you, so you may work on motherhood. That has been what's evolving. And I've gotten to a more subtle level of resistance to that, if that makes sense, where I'm just needing to really pay attention to the subtle nudges and nuances from the universe that are like whispers. They're not, redirections, but they're really whispers, and I have to listen to them or else they get even more faint. So,
and then I as you're talking, I was like, let me guess, but that, cause I had the same experience when I stepped into coaching, but it was a different thing. You had to go through a bit of ego death, because it sounds like your ego is probably like, what? Like the kind of prestige or status of like, oh, working with CEOs, like me leaving corporate world. Right. And like, was that part of your journey of just having judgment about your own identity in the world?
Yes. And to be honest, I'm still trying to surrender to that and resisting. Yeah. So, I wanted nothing more than to be a mom. I struggled with fertility for a while. I had several miscarriages. So when my first son was born, it was, something that I'd always longed for. And I there are lots of ways to be mothers in the world. They don't have to be human children. They can be creative projects. They can be fur babies. I think we all have that mother instinct, whether you're a man or a woman. We can take that maternal, maternal growth and service and that energy that you bring to things. So that energy is the same, no matter what it is that you're mothering. But for me, it was yes, it was a surrender and a trying to balance. And then, yes, like the first retreat I did for moms, I thought, what are they going to think? What are like Elaine? She used to recruit CEOs and chief marketing officers, and oh, poor Elaine, only moms will listen to her now. Like I had to like
That was the story in your head, though, the ego story, right?
Right. And then I'm like, why? But then that was such a aha to me of I don't value motherhood in the way that motherhood needs to be valued. And why don't I? And why don't we? Why doesn't society value motherhood? I mean,
Yeah.
especially, yeah.
Yo, sorry. No, keep going. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's really been something I've been sitting with now of just how quietly moms, and not just moms, I don't mean to stereotype that moms are the only ones doing this. I can only speak from my role as a mom. I'm not a father or, however you call yourself as a lead parent. So as a mom, I've really struggled with how silently parents have shifted into homeschooling without any real need for recognition and just, this is thrown at me, I'm going to take it. And what I've realized is that parents that are at home as lead parents and who aren't working outside the home are used to selfless service in a way that most of us who aren't in that role aren't as comfortable with. And that's been my journey is I want the validation. I want to be seen. I want to be recognized. And this invisible role of a lead parent, that the service has been really hard for me to surrender to. But as I've been surrendering to that more and more, it's been teaching me, I've been learning from that. And that to me is where I've found and am finding the moments of the purest joy in that service. So whether it's motherhood or fatherhood or whatever it is that you're surrendering to, you mentioned service earlier, talking about soul purpose, surrendering to that service and that discomfort really is, I think, where we find our soul purpose and the clues for that we can grow from that place and we can bring into other parts of our life.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be like there's a real even reckoning right now. I'm noticing with a lot of my clients, of just, keeping all these different silos of being all these different personas and wearing all these different hats. And now it's all just like been integrated like quickly. Right. And it's like been a bit of a reckoning moment. And I agree with you. Like there hasn't always been the value there. And I think that is something that's really coming to the head right now. I have a client that's still in this day and age, and I understand where the fear was coming from, while I was pregnant, while, interviewing for a new job. And it was like, oh, do I have to tell them I'm pregnant? No, you don't. But it's still like this, like it's, going to be a stack against you. Right. But as best as you know it now, well, let's start here, actually. Can you just talk about what's going on with moms right now, like as far as you're seeing it or and what's that sparking in you in terms of a way you could serve?
Yeah. So I can share what's been happening with me, and then I can share, anecdotally some things that have come up from the workshops we've done and conversations with moms. So first of all, parents, mothers, who are not just mothers, parents, or anyone with children at home who are working full time. I don't know how they're doing it. And I just send so much compassion. And I wish I could send sleep and rest to you. I mean, we are not, our society is not built to handle that. And we have our lives, we don't have the infrastructure to be thrown into that situation, right? It's clear that that's a challenge. So it was very clear to me as we were, all coming into quarantine, that I had to surrender and let go of so much that I was teaching and sharing at work. I mean, I was going to be having a 40-person business leaders retreat 2 weeks ago. Had to surrender to all of that, and so many moms who are used to being at home. And for me, it's so hard to find that time for self-care and that time for yourself. And so I've had to recommit to the wisdom of the forest, which is what we teach at Kindred Lane. I've had to recommit to that in a whole new level, which the first pillar of it is reconnect with self.
Yeah. And Elaine, we're going to continue this conversation when we come back from this commercial break. And I just remind everyone, you connect with us on social media if you like, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spreaker, and other casting platforms. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joynes, and we'll be right back.
At Heiser Orthodontics, we understand that your smile is a big deal for both kids and adults. We have the latest technology and state-of-the-art equipment. But honestly, what makes us unique is our patient experience. And we are not the only people saying this.
Heiser Orthodontics is amazing.
Superb.
Trustworthy. Compassionate.
A friendly place where they know what they're doing, and that's what I like about it.
We are a family-owned private practice where kids are valued, parents have a voice, and the entire Heiser team puts the patient first. Discover the Heiser Orthodontics difference. Call 470-330-9083 for a free consultation today.
Welcome back. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joynes, and I wanted to make sure everyone knows if you're looking for an opportunity to work at a conscious media network, UI Media Network is looking for like-minded interns to assist in getting the network's message out. You can email us at contact@uimedianetwork.org to connect. And if you want to be a radio host, you got a message to share, you think that's always been your calling, perhaps, maybe believe in it to be true, then also email us again at contact@uimedianetwork.org to know how. And we are back with Eliane Dinos. And so, Elaine, you were talking to us about what is going on with moms right now and what's that sparking within you.
Yes. So I was saying how hard it is to find time for yourself to kind of have the boundaries now that we've all been thrown into the blender at home. And so for me, it really took creating new boundaries and setting up new structure so that I had some space for myself, which has been really hard to find. And again, if you're working full time and have children at home, it's next to impossible to find that time.
It's wild. So, yeah.
As much as I want to share and teach the wisdom of the forest, which is our methodology at Kindred Lane, or as much as I want to help people navigate this time, because so many of the principles of what we share at Kindred Lane apply to what we're going through, I've had to just surrender to the fact that if I can't create that space to practice it at a deeper level for myself, then I don't have room to teach it. And homeschooling 3 children, and even though our part-time nanny has been living with us, that was already arranged, I still haven't had time to do all the things we need to do and just really be there for our community. And so I've had to surrender a lot of my work. So I'm not saying every parent needs to go do that. You know, we all need to put food on the table and support our families. But at the same time, if we don't take care of ourselves first, we're not going to be able to do anything else. So I that's really the core message of the work we teach at Kindred Lane, and that I've been trying to practice this time, is to live from my roots and soak up the sun.
And what does that mean? Can you give our folks examples of just anything, how they could start to apply that kind of concept in their life?
Sure. So this is what we call the essential truth of our work at Kindred Lane: live from our roots and soak up the sun. So it all begins with me. It all begins with you, each one of us as an individual. And the idea is that the forest can only be as healthy as each individual tree or each individual part of the forest. And then that whole interconnected system works. And just like trees share information and nutrients through their roots underground, we can connect from our roots and live from our roots. And the trees that are the strongest and that grow the healthiest in the forest are the ones that are deeply rooted. And when we talk about roots and living from our roots, we mean our shared values, your purpose, your beliefs, really the things that help you feel the most like you. And the way we help people uncover this is a bit of reflection on who are those people who had the most impact on you, your mentors, your parents, grandparents, a coach, whoever those people are in your early life or through your life, and even the stories of ancestors and their stories of hope and resilience and strength. And it's really a time now for us more than ever to draw on that strength and to remember those stories of resilience and hope that are part of our story. And that's what anchors us to the ground and helps us navigate the storms that may be blowing through. We certainly have some storms blowing through now. So that's the live from your roots. And then the soak up the sun is the other part of this reminder that you have to nurture yourself. You have to soak up the sun, water the roots, and the soil and the water has to get into the roots and go all the way up the tree for the tree to grow. And we know that, but we don't often think about that for ourselves. For me as a parent, and also just as someone who felt this need to give and give, because I feel like I've had abundance, I need to give more. That need to give and give, I wasn't giving myself permission to take care of myself. I was thinking about it as a branch on the tree as opposed to the sun and the water that makes the whole system work. And I really had this revelation 4.5 years ago, January 2016, when this all came in at once. And I kind of had this aha, because for the first time in a long time, all of those things were happening. And this is what we teach. This is the core of what we teach. And it really is our belief that when we do that, when we live from our roots and soak up the sun, then we can grow and thrive in a healthy way. So that's what we mean by reconnect with self and what that essential truth is. That's the first principle of the
And
wisdom.
you've taken many corporate executives, to your point, like through this process, more or less, right? At, your different workshops or, coaching or otherwise, right?
Yeah. So we use it in our coaching and workshops. We were launching a leadership program and the retreat that I mentioned, and was also working with some artists and other collaborators on a offsite offering for companies too. And we've also done retreats with moms and a variety of not just women, but also have worked with men who are comfortable getting uncomfortable and who are intentionally letting go of control and stepping into their purpose, their soul purpose.
And not to put you on the spot, live on air, and I know you've done some of this work with moms, but like, what's your heart telling you right now? Like, how are you possibly seeing this shifting or unfolding? Are you getting images or just nudges and ideas? Do you mind like just sharing it raw with us?
So the biggest thing that it has been coming through in the past few years, and that's been the hardest for me to surrender to, which is therefore what I know is the reason that the work that I'm supposed to do, is that moms who, not just moms, but for the work I'm meant to do for now, is to really work with motherhood. So motherhood working on me working on motherhood, and how much we are missing in our businesses and in the corporate world that could be learned from these parents, mothers, and just parents in general, lead parents who have surrendered their work out of the home in order to pour everything into their children and the selfless service. There's so much that we can learn from them that we could apply into our businesses. And recently what's been coming through is that, like, why don't we have leadership development for moms? And so mothership development is really what I feel like I'm supposed to work on now.
I love that. That feels like, there's so much energy around that. I really love that.
Thank you.
Love that. So how are you? I always say like surrender. It's always this nebulous thing. You're like, how do I actually surrender? Like, how do I do it? Can you share a little bit about like how, you're continuing to surrender? You just trying to not care? You're just trying to let go? You just like, what do you do?
That's such a good question. So I was trying to figure that out for a long time. It's like surrender, surrender. How come I can't surrender? And it's because you're trying to do something. You
Yeah.
can't do surrender, right? You have to stop doing to surrender. So whatever, and I'll find times I'm like, surrender. I'm like, oh, right, that's a cue, and let go. And just like, don't grab for the raft to hold yourself afloat. Like, let go and float on your back.
Right. Right.
Is the best way I can describe it. But sometimes you have to go through, it's like you can't exhale until you inhale. You have to go through some of that, or I have to go through some of that. Other people might just be able to surrender, surrender, surrender. For me, I have to go through a bit of this to keep letting go more and more and more. So,
and I think too, it's like being in tune with your energy and a feeling, which it sounds like is what you're doing. It's like, if I know I'm in this fear energy or controlling something, or you know what I mean? If I'm feeling light and kind of flowing, I know I'm like in some kind of state of surrender, because the opposite of surrender is like resistance, right?
Right. Yes. So I used to think that purpose was about, crafting some words and putting things together. And I think that's a starting point. But when we do that, we're bringing the same energy of building with Legos to, there's a mom reference, a kid reference.
I love it.
A lot of Legos in my life. But we're bringing that approach, and soul purpose is something organic. It's something that grows from the soil, from our soul. And the words soil and soul are very similar. So if you think about how to get in touch with it and surrender to it, for me, it's really been that letting go and uncovering the things that I haven't. So if it feels like building and structuring, then it's not getting you closer. If it feels like letting go and like rain or something melting away, then it feels like it's getting closer, has been my experience.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Hey, we only have a few minutes left. And one thing I did want to give you an opportunity to just comment on the lesson at the top of the hour and a bit of the topic for tonight. Did you always believe you had a soul purpose, or did you have a journey at all within that? Or did you always kind of believe you had a purpose in the world?
So Jessica, you introduced me to the term soul purpose. I thought purpose was more about building blocks, right? And putting things together. And there's some value in what I see purpose more in the corporate world. I mean, I think that is the starter. It's like the 101, right? And then a lot of the soul purpose work really, I think, happens outside the workplace. And really honoring the integration of your work and yourself and how you show up. So I didn't first believe that I had a soul purpose because I just thought I had a purpose, and and they're different. It feels different. And when you start to surrender to soul purpose, I think you're starting to uncover that. For me, it's been taking the kind of more mind cerebral approach to purpose, and now surrendering to more body and spirit. So I've been going through a women's spiritual fellowship with Neela Bhatt, a mutual friend of ours, Shakti Leadership. And I've also been doing yoga teacher training, a multidiscipline approach to yoga. And that's been bringing the body, more the subtle, the practices that are helping me surrender to that. So I didn't first believe it, but it was like a yellow brick road that got me there. And not to say I'm there, the road is continuing, but has gotten me to where I am. Absolutely believe there's a soul purpose. You have to believe it in order to step into it. But if you're not ready to believe you have a soul purpose, start with pulling some of those words together, start to craft something and surrendering to that discomfort, the service that you talked about, and you're well on your way.
That's so beautiful, the way that you put that. Eliane, any kind of final stuff you want folks to know? How can they get in touch with you, and any other things you'd like them to know about what you're up to right now?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's so much fun to be with you and to have this conversation, and just thinking about how different it was from the conversations when I was still, more focused on building with Legos. And now I am building with Legos in a lot of different ways. But you can find our work at kindredlane.com, kindredlane.com. And if anyone wants to experience our work, you can find in our store our Experience the Forest, and a lot of our virtual and digital offerings are there. And we have some more workshops that will be coming up. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on, Eliane. You've been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to have you on again. We thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm sending you a big virtual hug.
You too. Okay, we'll be right back. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins.
This is Kurt Arsenault of Arsenault Advisory Group. You just got married, but you may not realize that your money did as well. Is your spouse a spender or a saver? Will you purchase or rent a home? Finances aren't always fun to talk about, but getting on the same page with your partner and having real conversations about your goals will pave the way for a secure future. If you have recently tied the knot, visit arsenaultadvisory.com to download our free ebook titled 7 Smart Money Marriage Tips. Visit arsenaultadvisory.com to get your free ebook today.
Welcome back. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. And everyone, I want you to know about an incredible show that we're having on tomorrow. You've got to tune in for it. It's called Gluten Immunity and Autoimmunity. Are You at Risk? And this is with host Charles Krager and his guest, Dr. Tom O'Brien, on Building a Better Brain Show. And that's tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. And I just want to remind everyone, if you have any final questions, definitely give us a call at 678-495-4345. Okay, this is the moment I have been waiting for a couple of months now. You've seen us advertising and running our commercials about being able to come on air, have your questions answered live on air. Well, we have one brave soul. Now, I do know her. She's taken my course before. I've known her for a little while, but she's agreed to come on and have some questions answered live. So with that, I would love to bring on Rose. Hello, Rose. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, Jessica.
Thank you so much for being here. So just a little backstory here. So Rose took my Soul Purpose program about a year ago, and I know that what she's done is prepared some questions that I think like your questions that you've had to address before in the past, Rose, or might still be struggling with, but that they were also questions that you thought might be helpful for our viewers to hear answers to. So I just want to thank you for being brave enough to come on air and do this with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're on. So fire away. Do you want to just go ahead and start with your first question?
Sure. So one of the things I think about when I'm trying to pursue my soul purpose is trying to balance finances and security and the sense of safety with stepping into what my soul purpose is, which doesn't involve my current career path.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do I manage those fears? And it's definitely a struggle for me.
Yeah. And look, they are very real, we have a society that's like built, on, things, on money, right? Like needing to have security, like you got to be able to pay your bills, what I always say to folks is that, the universe doesn't put a calling, and a soul purpose is a calling. It's something that you have true passion and true resonance for. Does not put a true purpose and a calling within your heart that there's no path to abundance towards. Does it mean it might be a little bit challenging on the way? Maybe, right? But the one thing that took me a long time to believe, and it was a limiting belief I had for a long time, I thought, oh, like you pursue your dreams, you're going to be poor. Like they both can't go hand in hand. Right. And so the opposite, the universe isn't cruel, Now the path and the expression of that might not be what you think it's going to look like. Right. Like sometimes, we might get fixated on the outcome of the purpose. Like I love art. I want to be an artist. Well, maybe universe is going to guide you to take that love for art and express it in a different way. And that's where you've got to release attachment to outcome and let universe guide you. If you do that true resonance, that true passion, that desire, And again, you're not trying to have a master plan to create it. You're letting the universe guide you, will lead to a path to abundance. Here's the other thing. It's not black and white. Now, I have a story where it is a bit black and white. Like, I walked away from everything and left. I felt like I had to, and I had no choice. In hindsight, was it like the smartest thing I did financially? No. Maybe I would have liked to ease into it a little bit more and like take my time. So what I will say as well is like, this doesn't have to be some dramatic leap just because I did that way. I felt guided to do that. And that's a whole other story. For me, that was my path. But there are ways to like build while you're still doing. There are ways to transition and do that with ease. It doesn't have to be these dramatic leaps. And as long as you can allow yourself like the peace of a transition, right? You can do this really seamlessly. Does that help answer your question?
It totally does help. And actually that sort of feeds into one of my other questions.
Yeah.
So the idea, I didn't even think to articulate it that way, easing into a transition. I've been trying to get my ball rolling to pursue my soul purpose. And one of the things that I did recently to ease into the transition without even knowing I was doing this was I moved to Seattle, and in the middle of a pandemic. and it's like, so I feel good about taking this first step, but I also feel that the everyday of life often chews up so much of my time. And before I know it, a month has gone by, and it's just in being present and managing my personal chores and tasks. And how do you, I know it sounds so simple just to say, just make time to pursue this, but how do you manage that daily grind, if you will, while you're still trying to think bigger and beyond?
Yeah. Well, look, and I want to answer something too that wasn't your question, but it was a really important point, is that when you're being guided to take steps to your soul purpose, it's not always about like work stuff. Like, you were guided to move to Seattle. Like, that was just something your soul was calling you to do. Who knows what's going to happen for that, right? Like, so I want our audience to know, like, sometimes the guidance aren't like the steps you think they're going to be in your head. It might be like, go do more yoga. Do you know what I mean? So just like really wanted to point that out there. Look, time is a number of things, right? So one, the pressure of time and thinking that like we're on some destination, we have some clock, like that totally blocks us. The truth is, when you're meant to step into truly like being deep within that soul purpose journey, the time is going to appear, or you're going to be so disgruntled or whatever, like feel it within you so much to need it that you're going to make the time, right? So it does come down a little bit to choice. But I promise you, like when you're at a point or an apex where you're just like, this thing is no longer working, I have to find the time to do this, like you will find a way to make that time. And I know that feels like a little bit nebulous and a little bit vague, but that's on the bigger picture. On the small picture, like we put so much pressure. 10 minutes a week is good. You got 10 minutes a week to start towards it. That is good. You have 5 minutes a day to just wake up and start visualizing your dream and sit for 5 minutes visualizing your dream. You are doing your soul purpose journey. And the thing is, when you put like even a little bit of time each day, like that 5 minute a day, you'll be surprised what opens up and expands. And then all of a sudden how you have time or something comes your way. So soul purpose isn't about like being in the act of like doing. Sometimes, and it sounds like it might be where you are right now, it's sitting in meditation, doing a soul purpose meditation a day, 10 minutes. Or it could be even simpler. It could be a minute prayer, where you just say, God, universe, whatever, choose your word. I deeply desire to find and know my soul purpose. Please show me the way today. Please help me connect to it. And that might be it. That's 30 seconds. That alone. And again, when you're meant to take more steps, universe is going to show you, what to do, and it's going to create the time for you. It's going to be obvious. You're not going to need to feel like you're forcing and pulling and trying to like make this happen. But I would say at the bare minimum, the 30-second prayer a day, that's enough. You know, if you can be visualizing, that's enough too, you know, that's great.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question if you have it, or did that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up to it?
That did answer my question. I do have a follow-up that is related to the pandemic. It's triggering a lot of people, myself included, and I'm not able to really articulate the fear that it's triggering. It's just this anxiety. When I feel like I should be saving money, I feel like I should be protecting myself. I feel like I need to have a bubble around myself and my family. I'm hoping that's a whole nother thing. We're not going to talk about that. How do you might have already discussed this in one of your previous shows because of this happening while the pandemic's happening, but how do you recommend continuing to follow your soul purpose even though this pandemic's going on and it feels like what my soul purpose isn't going to help the pandemic? It's not going to help anybody else out there that's struggling financially with what the pandemic is manifesting. So like there's a little guilt about following my soul purpose that isn't noble enough.
Yeah, there's a few things within that. I think 3 things I'm going to remember to try to break down that, come up. The first thing is this is like a mass fear detox for many. Like that's kind of the purpose of the moment. So go with it. Dive into those fears, understand those fears. And it's like, wow, I really believe in scarcity. Wow, I really believe I'm not a soul of perfect health and well-being. I believe I can die. That's a whole other one. That's like a much bigger topic, right? But like, it's really diving into those beliefs because they're coming up for a reason. They're coming up because your belief in them to be real is somehow blocking you in life. And the only way through those is to understand the root cause. And it's a little bit too much to get into with this time, but understand the root cause and go through a process of surrendering those fears. Like this is your opportunity and moment to surrender your deepest fears, The second thing, a little bit that I hear coming up too is, remembering that you have the power to shift. Right. So if you feel that you're just like in a negative spiral, are you choosing to see the limitation or are you choosing to see the good things? Right. And remembering that you have the ability to choose to master your perception in any moment by choosing your perception. That's how you master your reality. So remembering that place of empowerment that you have a choice in every moment of what you're focusing on. And then the third thing I'll say is, if your heart is calling you somewhere, that is like from the divine. So it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It is straight from the divine. So you really are being guided to trust into that. Again, having compassion for your fears, feeling your feelings, that's really so much of what this moment about, but remembering that you do indeed have the power to shift. So I think that's about all we have time for. Rose, thank you for being our brave soul to come live on air and bring these questions forward. I know that you've helped so many people, and I just want to thank you incredibly. And, if you ever want to come back on, we'd love to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun.
So everyone, we're about out of time. I want to thank all of you. I want to remind you, we're going to keep going through the lessons in the book. Next month, it's all about learning that soul purpose is truly a heart-centered endeavor. And I can't wait to do that lesson with you as well. And I just thank everyone for being here. I wish you the best right now, and I'll see you next month. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. Goodbye for now.
We hope this episode helped you take a step closer to find your soul purpose. We will be back in 3 weeks on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on the uimediaapp.com, WDJY 99.1 FM, WTTA 101.2 FM, Talk10FM.com, and Facebook Live on United Intentions, Spreaker, and many other platforms. Jessica Joins is happy to hear from you, so make sure you watch and share her show, and also write to her on Facebook with your comments, suggestions, and questions. Wherever you are in life, it's never too late to uncover what makes you happy. Let us help you find your soul purpose.
The United Intentions Foundation and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.